In 1918, just as the First World War was drawing to a close, another catastrophe began to spread across the globe. People hoped for peace after 4 years of destruction, but instead, the world faced a new enemy. One that was invisible, silent, and far deadlier than any weapon of war. It was influenza, later known as the Spanish flu. The world at that time was fragile. Millions of soldiers were packed into trenches, barracks, and ships. Cities were exhausted, food was scarce, and medical systems were already overwhelmed. In this environment, a new and deadly strain of influenza emerged. At first, in the spring of 1918, it seemed mild. Soldiers in Kansas and later in Europe developed fevers, coughs, and fatigue, but most survived. Governments, focused on winning the war, paid little attention. But the virus was mutating, and what came next would be far worse. By the autumn of 1918, the flu returned with terrifying strength. This second wave was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Victims collapsed suddenly, their skin turning blue as their lungs filled with fluid. Death could come within days, or even hours. Unlike most seasonal flus, which kill the very young and the elderly, this strain struck hardest at young, healthy adults, the same generation already devastated by the war. Entire families fell ill at once. Hospitals overflowed. In some cities, bodies piled up in homes because there were no coffins left. Mass graves were dug to bury the dead. The pandemic hit Philadelphia with particular horror. Despite warnings, officials allowed a massive parade to go forward. Within days, the city was overwhelmed. Thousands died within a single week, and fear spread faster than the virus itself. Across the world, schools, theaters, and churches closed. People wore masks in the streets, gatherings were banned, and public life came to a halt. Yet, despite all efforts, the virus spread relentlessly. No corner of the globe was safe. The Spanish flu infected an estimated 500 million people, around 1/3 of the entire world's population at the time. Between 50 and 100 million died. In India, millions perished within weeks. In Alaska, entire indigenous villages disappeared. In some regions, so many people were lost that societies nearly collapsed. To put this into perspective, the First World War killed about 20 million people. The flu killed at least twice as many. Daily life during the pandemic was filled with fear. Funerals were rushed. Doctors worked night and day, but there were no antibiotics, no antivirals, and almost no effective treatments. People relied on volunteers, many of whom died themselves while trying to care for the sick. Isolation became the only real defense, and in many cities, silence replaced the noise of daily life. By 1920, the Spanish flu had weakened and disappeared as suddenly as it had arrived. But its legacy remained. Entire families were gone, economies were shaken, and the memory of the tragedy lingered in those who survived. Yet, overshadowed by the war that came before it, the pandemic gradually faded from collective memory. The Spanish flu changed history. It showed how fragile humanity can be in the face of disease, and it forced governments and scientists to rethink public health, hygiene, and international cooperation. Even today, researchers study the events of 1918 to understand how pandemics spread, and how they can be stopped. The pandemic of 1918 was more than just an epidemic. It was a global catastrophe, claiming more lives than the First World War. It proved that humanity's greatest threats may not always be found on the battlefield, but in the microscopic world of viruses. And the lesson it left behind is clear. Vigilance, science, and unity are our best defense against history repeating itself.